evening. Good to have you all here, and we have people online as well. I'm Rev.Tim Lytle, Senior Minister here, and we welcome you to our Good Friday service. Thank you for coming. We will have multiple people who have parts that they will be helping with tonight, and we're going to be looking at the 7 statements, the 7 last statements of Jesus on the cross. And you won't find these 7 statements in any one of the Gospels. You have to take all 4 of the Gospels together to find all 7 of these statements. But when Jesus is making these statements, it's not something that he's just saying for himself. He's saying this representing all of us. He's saying something that speaks to the consciousness of each one of us. So this whole event of the crucifixion of Jesus is referring to things that are going on in our own consciousness that we are releasing, that we are letting go of, and our attitudes towards life. Jesus is the ultimate teacher, and in these 7 statements on the cross, he is continuing to teach us and guide us. So we are very grateful that we can be here tonight. I just invite you, if you would, to relax your gaze or close your eyes and take a deep breath. In Spirit, we give thanks for this time together tonight. As we celebrate the life of Jesus, as we celebrate the life of the Christ living as each one of us, as we look at how these 7 statements unfold and uplift our consciousness, for all of this we give thanks, and so it is. Amen. And now Reverend Johanna will come up and help us with the first segment.
Thank you, Reverend Tim. Earlier in the life of Jesus, an event occurred which has become known as the Transfiguration. And in this event, Moses and Elijah are talking with Jesus, and the Bible says they spoke with him of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. You notice those words they spoke to him. His decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. And there are many other places in the Bible where it pins Jesus to knowing of his planned crucifixion, that he knew already his purpose in this plane here. And that he not only anticipated it, but he also cooperated with it fully. In fact, when it was suggested to him, or rather it was basically kind of just where it's a lure to him on whether or not he should be rescued from having to go through the experience, he stopped any attempt to rescue him, and he said to the effect, "Don't you think that if I wanted it, my Father would send 12 legions of angels to rescue me?" He could have stopped it at any time. And he could have done it this time as well. Jesus calculated and planned and decreed everything that occurred in his life. Everything that happened to him was the result of his own conscious process of thought and feeling and action. Therefore, the crucifixion is something that he deliberately went through for the same reason that he went through every other experience in his life, beginning with his birth. And the reason for this was to teach us lessons in truth, to help us realize our oneness with God, our oneness with our Creator. In unity, at times, it has been called salvation, or if you look at other religious sects, they would call it salvation. But we know that inner Christ, that inner God is within us as well. And he came, and everything that he said, everything that he did, Every experience he went through was deliberately planned for one reason only, to teach us lessons, to realize who our Father, our Creator, our source, whether you know it to be feminine or masculine, whatever you feel God is, to know that source within you.
This is a journey for Jesus that was a process that began as early as inside Mary's womb. Before he was actually born, this process of the teachings of his life began. And it continued throughout all of his life and occurs during the process this week that includes the crucifixion experience. Jesus was not a victim of circumstances. He never saw himself as a victim of this experience. He was the complete master of his own destiny and therefore a teacher for us all. Metaphysically, a crucifixion symbolizes any experience or life event which is an opportunity for us to cross out our error human thinking, or some belief that we hold that we in any way could be separate from the God that created us, from that energy of infinite life. So center in that idea about the crucifixion, that when we see that experience metaphysically, it is reflecting for us the opportunity to let go of, to release, to cross out our own error thinking or a mistaken belief we hold about God and the experiences of our own life. Sometimes our crucifixion takes the form of a tragic experience. Sometimes it shows up in the guise of a serious problem. And here's the tricky part. Sometimes it shows up in the form of a happy event. And still, we may experience anything that gives us an opportunity to release old, worn-out thinking and beliefs that no longer serve us, to cross them out from our human experience, to let go of the limitation and the idea of separation. In this specific experience of the crucifixion of Jesus, it represents the final complete crossing out once and for all of all human error, the limitation and the removal of any belief in the separation from God. We go through the daily crucifixions in our own life, and we reach the daily resurrections as well. But the crucifixion of Jesus represents that final overcoming that we shall all make someday in the future. The final, once and for all, crossing out of any belief that there is a separation possibility from God. Then will come the resurrection, which is Easter morning. And we won't go into that today. That's the journey for Sunday. We are in the process of setting up this great truth of the journey to the resurrection.
In Jerusalem that day, the soldiers tried to clear the narrow street, but the crowd pressed in to see the man condemned to die
Now, if we remember that while Jesus goes through all the experiences of his life as recorded in the Gospels, he is really thinking of us, and Reverend Tim referred to that earlier. We are always uppermost in Jesus' mind. He did not do these things for his own sake, friends. He didn't need to. He was the conscious Christ during his lifetime. He told us that. So what he did was not for his sake. Everything he did was for our sake, to demonstrate that it was possible. Now he is going through this experience called crucifixion, which in the outer seems to be an unjust execution of killing of him by his enemy. But actually, friends, it's a magnificent symbol, a symbol of overcoming, of crossing out human error, limitation, and belief in separation. He knew someday he would realize this, and so he did something which was truly, truly remarkable. He continued teaching. He continued teaching us lessons in truth, even while he was facing crucifixion. He continued to do what he had been doing all of his life, teaching us lessons in truth so that we could understand our oneness with God just a little bit more. And these teachings, and that he gave us in the midst of his own crucifixion, have come to be known as the 7 last words of Jesus from the cross. And these are the 7 last words. They are, first, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Second, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. Third, woman, behold thy son, behold thy mother. Fourth, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Fifth, I thirst. Sixth, it is finished. And seventh, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit.
Now, the 7 last statements given by Jesus at first glance seem to pertain only to the situation that he was in at the time. But this is not so. Every word spoken by Jesus has a twofold meaning. And as metaphysicians, we know that there is a deeper meaning to everything that was said in the Bible. And the first meaning is somewhat of lesser significance at this point. It points to what was happening at the time that it was uttered. And it's used for historical context. But the other meaning of the words spoken by Jesus is of the utmost importance to every man and woman in this world. And it's called the universal meaning, or if you prefer, the metaphysical meaning. And we are going to consider only the second today, the universal or metaphysical. Because this is what a truth statement is. It looks beyond what is known here in this conscious plane and goes above that and sees it in spirit. And we are going through this experience in life, which seems to be a problem, but really is an opportunity to cross out some type of human error, belief within us. And that's what this metaphysical meaning of the 7 last statements of Jesus, what it is looking to do within you, looking to do within me. To eliminate our belief in the separation of God. And so we begin the 7 last sayings of Jesus.
So the first of these statements is, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And again, Jesus is demonstrating his love for everyone, regardless of how they are behaving. He's praying for the people who are actually crucifying him. He's praying for the people who are dividing his clothes. He is praying for the people who nailed him to the cross. He is praying for Pilate, who condemned him to this, even though he knew he was innocent. He's praying for all of us. And notice that it doesn't say that he says, I forgive you. He prays for the Father. He prays for Source. He prays for the one that he referred to as Abba, Papa, to forgive them. What he is demonstrating and teaching us about our own consciousness in this is how to hold people in love, even when they act in ways that hurt us, even when they are acting in ways that may really inflict a lot of pain. He's demonstrating to us how to show love, kindness, and forgiveness in the hardest of circumstances. Notice he didn't say, Father, forgive them, even though they're sinful. Father, forgive them, even though they're... What he said was, Father, forgive them. They do not know what they do. So he is describing that when people do hurtful things, they are doing it because they don't actually know what they're doing. He is saying, hold them in love. In all things, as far as possible, express love and express kindness and pray for them. I think of someone who I experienced great hurt. And so for 90 days, I daily prayed for that person to be blessed. And after 90 days, I really, really meant it. And their life is blessed, and we're good friends now. Practice that. That's what Jesus is teaching.
And this is where the power of Spirit rests in us. It isn't that we are able to access and readily do that forgiving, but through the power of Spirit within us, we can find it within ourselves, because it's not God out there. It's God right here. That higher awareness, that true consciousness at the center of our being that gives us the possibility of standing in this expression, the greatest expression of love. We have to surpass and transcend our human nature and not give up in despair or discouragement, and do not blame yourself for not being able, from the human self, from the ego, to be able to forgive. But remember these words and turn this work over to that power of God within you, who will lead you into this great sacred work. When the power of Spirit begins this work in us, as Tim said, 90 days, perhaps we begin with the willingness to forgive, to be shown how we can transcend the hurt experience of our ego and step into this God energy that we hold within us, so that that human ego can fall in line with the presence of God and find it possible to cooperate with that energy, that great and infinite energy of love. And this is also Jesus telling us that here in this reality, no person or no thing really wants to hurt us. when someone does something that offends us or hurts us or harms us, it is really because they do not understand at depth what they are doing. This lack of understanding is the only real injury from one human to another, or our human error. For any human error, I do not accept that there is generally deliberate, ingrained human maliciousness that exists. This is not what we understand to be the greater truth of human nature. Where there is a lack of understanding, where there is a lack of compassion, we injure one another. And it is this reason that offenses exist in our human experience. And Jesus knew that. And he knew that when we turn over our need to forgive to the Father within us, to this infinite wisdom, that we can accomplish that great human experience. Once forgiveness is put into operation in our lives, this is when miracles occur. And there is no higher expression of love in the whole realm of human life, in our affairs, in our experiences, than we turn error into truth. And this will turn misunderstanding and inharmony into the experience of harmony and understanding.
And as that harmony becomes understanding, we come to our second phrase. Today, be with me in paradise. Now, this was spoken as Jesus was hanging on the cross between the two thieves. He speaks this to the second thief, who asked for Jesus to consider him as they died. In the pamphlet by Charles Fillmore, Live in the Present, it is explained that the two thieves on the crosses on either side of Jesus represent the past and the future, with Jesus in the center representing the here and now consciousness of the oneness with God. Now, on the one side is the thief that is railing against Jesus, telling him, why don't you bring us all down from here? Why don't you save us from all of this? This is the past. This is all of our mistakes that try to rail against us, that try to convince us that we need to live in that place, that we need to stay in that place of the past, of our wrongness, of our unhappy memories. But in essence, Jesus ignores him and instead turns his attention to the second thief. In this ignoring, in this addressing the other thief instead of the first that is railing against him, this is our reminder that when we turn our attention from that past, we take away its substance. We take away its bite. And as we are able to do that, as we are able to turn our attention away, it's over. It's done. It's truly the past. And so we can logically conclude that the second thief represents the future. It's our thoughts and concerns about what is going to happen. So he asked Jesus to remember him when Jesus comes into the Father's kingdom. He has an understanding that there is more past this now life and past our past mistakes. And so Jesus responds to him
today, thou shalt be with me in paradise. And as he does this, this represents the attitude that we should have toward our own future, knowing that it rests within the Father. It rests within our oneness. Paradise is heaven, but heaven is not an out there future concept. Heaven is here and now. It is the expanding consciousness of God. And so Jesus says to the thief, even though you symbolize the future, I bring you into this here and now consciousness of God, always expanding. And this is what we do with our future-bound thoughts.
And the reason for this, friends, is very apparent, because if we are sustained in a here and now consciousness of God, if this is the paramount state of mind we are in, when the future does come, what does it turn into? Well, it turns into the present. You see, let's just put it out there. Let's just say I have a problem that I have to meet tomorrow, and I am concerned about it, but I bring my concern for that problem that I have to meet tomorrow into my now consciousness of God. And that is where I am. Now, when tomorrow comes and the problem comes up, when will it come up? Can you guess? Now. It will come up in the now. And I am sustained in my here and now consciousness of God. And so I handle it when it comes up in my here and now consciousness of God. It will be handled correctly. That, friends, is the instruction about our thoughts for the future. Today thou art with me in paradise.
Woman, behold thy son. Son, behold thy mother. Now, the two people that Jesus is talking about here are Mary, his actual mother, and his disciple John. Now, John was not related to Mary. Mary was not John's mother, as we know. Therefore, when Jesus said, "Woman, behold thy son," and "behold thy mother," he's not stating a literal fact, but he is stating a new truth. Earlier in his ministry, Jesus had been told that his mother and his brethren were outside waiting for him. And he gives a very puzzling response to this information. He says, well, who is my mother and who are my brethren? And then he stretches forth his hand and he says, behold, my mother, my brethren, all of those who do the will of my Father, this same are my mothers, my brothers, and my sisters. In other words, he is repeating here a lesson in human relationships that he has given previously, which he must have considered important in order to include it in his last statements. He's telling us here that in truth, every person, regardless of what their specific family relationships may be, that in reality, every person is every other person's mother, brother, and sister. Every woman is every other person's mother in reality, and every man is every other person's brother. And all men and all women are each other's brothers, sisters, mothers, sons, and daughters. In our human family, we are all one. But no one man on earth is our father. That is left out because Jesus never refers to any earthly male as a father. There's no such thing in truth. We're being told here once more that we are each other's mothers, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters. And sooner or later, we will have to acknowledge this and make no separation.
Probably the most debated statement that Jesus made on the cross, and you'll hear lots of different points of view on it, is when Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Now he said it in Aramaic, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Now, some people say, well, Jesus couldn't have possibly been experiencing that for himself, but I believe he did. Jesus came and experienced all the things that we experience. So I believe he did experience that, but he's also saying it for all of us, because all of us at some point, or at least many of us, have at times felt like, wow, where is God in this situation? Or is there God? Is there any sort of source here that is helping me? When Jesus is saying this, in that day, the Psalms, in the middle of the Bible are the Psalms. And they didn't have them numbered. They knew the Psalms, and they would chant and sing the Psalms together, and they would know which one to chant together when you would give the first line. So it'd be kind of like, if someone was to quote the first line of a song, then if it's a song you're familiar with, it's like, oh, you know the rest of the song. This is the 22nd Psalm that Jesus is quoting from. It's the first line. My God, why have you forsaken me? And if you read that psalm, it talks about, oh, my enemies have surrounded me. All my joints have gone out of joint. My hands and my feet have been pierced. It talks, if you read it, it sounds very much like the crucifixion. And the way it ends up, if you go through the whole psalm, is knowing that God is here with us no matter how bad it looks. So when Jesus is quoting this first line, he's referring to the whole psalm. Yes, it looks bad right now. Yes, there are times where we feel abandoned. Yes, there are times where it looks dark and dismal. And as one minister said, yes, it's Friday, but Sunday's a-coming. That is, it may be a crucifixion experience right now, but just know there's a resurrection coming, new life coming.
Along that same idea of Jesus fulfilling the Psalms, he also fulfills the prophets in the Hebrew Scriptures. And his fifth statement, he says, I thirst. This statement is solely to fulfill the prophets. Now, it's important because we have to see what the result is when he makes this statement. It results in a Roman soldier taking a sponge on a stick, dipping it in vinegar or sour wine, and then holding it up to Jesus' mouth. Now, this was completely unheard of. The whole point of a crucifixion was for the person to suffer, but also for them to die quickly. And so to help alleviate a portion of that suffering in the process, we have to understand that the circumstances were not promising. But in it, Jesus was able to call forth an act of kindness. He called forth mercy in the shape of this Roman soldier. And he calls it forth by putting voice, by putting word to his need. In this is a reassurance for us in this here and now. In these two words, I thirst. Jesus is telling us that no matter how barren of good our lives may appear, that no matter how unpromising our outcome circumstances may appear, if we really, truly need good in our life, if we acknowledge that need and we voice it in faith, we get a response. He shouldn't have gotten that drink. That sponge should never have been lifted to him. But because he acknowledged his need and because he voiced it in faith, the Father responded. The same is true in our lives. We may say, in this situation, there is no way for good to come to me. I cannot possibly get anything out of these current circumstances. But that is one of those error thinking that we are crossing out tonight. Instead, we remember, I thirst. I thirst for good to somehow come out of this. And if we voice it, when we ask for it, we receive. Because we are also promised in Scripture, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be open to you. If we don't ask, if we don't seek, if we don't knock, then things remain the same. Don't be ashamed of your need. Seek instead in faith. And through that faith, God will take you to the most unlikely channels to produce what you are seeking.
Take a deep, deep breath. It is finished. Can you imagine the moment when Jesus realized, it is finished? These words symbolize any moment in our life when we recognize that we have taken one more step toward our good. We have completed one more phase of learning a life lesson and are now ready to grow into a new dimension of consciousness. We've recognized the completion of our fulfillment of a past phase of growth by the words, it is finished. Many of us neglect doing this, but each time we learn some kind of a life lesson, it is completed. It has been fulfilled. And this is observing the Sabbath in your own soul. You have entered the 7th phase of your own created process. And when you recognize that you were done with the old self that you were, it is finished. Then the new self you are becoming will blossom forth, and you have grown in wisdom and are lifted in consciousness.
And now, the last statement. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Your spirit is not your human personality. It is not the current mood you're in or the current physical body and what its conditions are. Your spirit is eternal. It is one with God. It has never left the holiness of God. It continues in this now moment and remains there safe, unaltered by anything that has occurred here on this human plane. And you have always been and will always be a perfect being in God. And this being is more than deserving of eternal and perfect life. And your spirit is always merged with the good of the universe, the good that is known as God. And at any time, we can take the moment and realize that being, our own being, my being, your being, is one with its creator, one with that good. And now we are repeating in our own souls the final words of Jesus from the cross. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. This is another way of saying, God the good omnipotent, regardless of how I feel, what I think, what I look like, or what I'm going through right now, I am eternally one with you in all the good you are. Where I cannot trace you, let me trust you. And when we do this, we shall accomplish just what Jesus accomplished, a resurrection. And if you know this song, please sing with me. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. Thy will is my will. Heal me at death, so that I may glorify God. Reveal that which needs to be revealed. Heal that which needs to be healed, so that I may glorify God. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. Thy will is my will. Heal me at death, so that I may glorify God. Reveal that which needs to be revealed. Heal that which needs to be healed, so that I may glorify God. And let us glorify God with us commending our spirit unto him through any difficult situation. Let us trust him when we cannot trace him.
As Tim began, to follow this journey, you have to read through all 4 Gospels. There is no one place that records all of this information, and the words are sometimes different. At this point of the journey, the Gospel Mark uses these words: he gave up the ghost. In Matthew, it says he yielded up his spirit. In Luke, it says he gave up the ghost. And then in John, it says He gave up his spirit, rooted perhaps in knowing that it is the inner essence, the divine nature, the infinite truth of his beingness reflected in these words, whether it be ghost or spirit. He gave into this experience willingly. He did not lay it down. He yielded or lifted it up. He certainly did not die. That word does not appear. And yet in our human thinking, that's the word we often use to describe this phase of life, that we are lifting ourselves from the physical body into a different state. It's a very significant difference to translate the process of dying into lifting up, yielding up. Jesus raised his consciousness. That's what's being addressed here. Not so much the physical experience related to the body, but of moving to the next higher level of consciousness, transcending our experience enveloped in this body. We know that next dimension as the fourth dimension, the wholly intuitive, non-sensory realm. Right now, we are experiencing three dimensions. We live in time, space, and the circumstances of our lives. Jesus was raising his conscious, functioning level of life into the next higher realm, into that fourth dimension. And in this experience, he is now free, completely free from the limitations of the human body, the limitations of time, space, and circumstance. And this state is absolutely and completely available to all of us to reach into that experience of not dying, letting go of the body, yes, but never dying. Just as we are able to raise our consciousness, we can follow Jesus into this higher realm of spiritual essence existence, truly that realm of going home to the infinite spirit.
I'd like to lead a meditation. And after meditation, we will, those who would like to, we have open communion at Unity. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to subscribe to any particular doctrine or creed. Anybody can participate in communion here. And so after this meditation, if you would like to receive communion, you just come up and receive one of these cups. The top layer, you have to kind of look closely, the top layer you peel back and you get to the wafer. And then there's a second layer you peel back and then you can get to the juice. And you can receive that as soon as you're ready. You don't have to wait on everybody. But this is our time to really connect with all that we've been talking about letting go of those things that no longer serve us, releasing it, crossing it out, and really allowing ourselves to rise up in the Christ consciousness. So I invite you, if you wish, to relax your gaze or close your eyes. I invite you to take a deep breath. And in this breath, we recognize our oneness with all, our oneness with the divine, our oneness with our own spirit. And we release anything that holds us back from experiencing that oneness. We release fear. We release resentment. We release worry. Whatever it is that holds us back from experiencing that fullness of the divine, of knowing that I am that. I am that presence. Anything that holds us back, we release and we let go. And we embrace all that we are. We embrace the Christness that we are. We embrace this divine presence, experiencing and living as us. Let us have just a few moments of silence as we center into this. And silently within, we affirm that we release all that is in the way, and we allow ourselves to reveal our highest consciousness. And so it is. Amen. And at this time, Johanna, Reverend Johanna, and Becca will be here at these stations. If you wish to come up and receive communion, just take one of these with you and you can share in communion. Communion with one another. Communion with Source. Communion with your divine presence, as did Jesus.
And as we finish up the communion, I invite each one of you after today's service, you'll see on either table that there is a a purple slip. And in the purple slip, it says, I release and cross out. As explained in the 7 last statements of Jesus, that what crossing out really means, of that crucifixion. What in your life are you ready to cross out? What belief are you ready to release and say goodbye to? Write it here on the paper, and then at the end of service, we will have this cross here, and you may use a push pen to just place what you are crossing out, symbolically eliminating it from the consciousness of your being. So it'll be right here after service, and there's pens as well and push tabs as well. And we'll bring the cross right here. Nobody has to step up onto the stage. Thank you.
At this time, if any of you would like to share in your offerings, we will be passing plates for the offering.
Yes, we have bowls, and Becca's going to start on that side, and I believe Tina is going to start on this side.
So, and we will have a song. So continue to stay in this prayerful space, this space of releasing and embracing all that you are here to be.
You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours. You are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. My feet may fail and fear surrounds me. You've never failed, and you won't stop now. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours. You are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. And take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. And take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Oh Jesus, my God, I will call upon your name. Keep my eyes above the waves. My soul will rest in your embrace.
And so we continue to affirm that we go forth from here in that high consciousness. At one time, I was a leader in Catholic church, and I was part of a Catholic church, large Catholic church, where people would just sometimes gather in silence around the cross and just contemplate and be in silence. It was like, whew, so moving. And I want you to feel comfortable with doing whatever appeals to you. But if you want to just stay in the silence, even as this service ends, if you wish to come up and place on the cross that which you want to release, whatever helps you to connect with the energy of this night, I invite you to do that. And I do want to remind you that this Sunday is Easter, and so we're celebrating the other side, you know. This is Friday, but Sunday's a-coming. And so that's about the resurrection. It's about new life. It's about rising up from the ashes, you know, like the phoenix. So please come and be with us on Sunday. Join us online. Thank you all who have joined us online. And, you know, invite some friends to come here and be with us on Sunday. It's going to be a fantastic day. We're going to have Easter egg hunt out here in the courtyard with an Easter bunny, a real live Easter bunny. And grateful for that. And it will also be the first Sunday of having our Sunday brunches. So our kitchen and meals are being revived. So we will have the Easter meal. And so there are different kinds of meals available for those of us who have different kinds of dietary needs, okay? So that'll be this Sunday. So please come and be with us. And I just invite us to, again, take a deep breath. Spirit, we give thanks for this time together. We give thanks for the work that Jesus came to do, to show the way. We give thanks for his obedience, his willingness to fully identify and know that presence, living as himself, and teaching us to do likewise. We go forth from this night more aligned, more connected with that oneness, with that presence. And we go forth from here to spread that presence, that oneness, wherever we are. We give thanks, and together we say, and so it is. Amen.